Hello, and welcome to Connecting You to You Radio, where we tune in to receive the messages of health and well being that are being broadcast from the soul. I'm your host, Lisa Warner, author of The Simplicity of Self-Healing. I show you how to heal your body naturally by combining your body's innate intelligence with the wisdom of your own soul, so that you can break through the mental programming of limiting beliefs that cause disease and make healing your body and changing your life simple. Hello and welcome, everyone. Welcome to another Soul Stories, because every soul has a story. And the more we share our stories, the more we start to realize that our stories are far more similar than they are different. Every story is unique, but we are humanity and we have all been going through the same types of struggles for a very long time. And now it's time to come to the end of those struggles and create something brand new on this planet. And today we are here with this beautiful soul named Robin Joy Riggsbee. Robin is a beautiful bright light, someone I have just met relatively recently, and she does bring joy wherever she goes. And I am very excited to introduce you today to Robin Joy Riggsbee. Robin Joy, welcome.
Thank you, Maura. Thank you so much for inviting me here. It's great. It's a privilege to be here with you.
Laura. It's fun.
Yeah.
Robin Joy, where did your story start?
Oh my goodness. My story started, I grew up in a house of 4 generations living together. So I lived with my parents, my mother's father and mother, and her grandfather, and then my great aunt. So we had a house full of people. And I will say, for me, that I feel like I was the most blessed human being coming into this life form, because it was the most loving household of people that you could ever possibly imagine. My parents were truly soulmates. I saw the power of 2 incredibly, deeply soulful people. When they would walk into a people, you could see, it was evident. Anybody whose lives encountered them will tell you that they transformed their lives. Their love was so, and my grandparents and my great grandfather, he was a Hasidic Jew. And I remember sitting on his lap, and, for him, the lesson from him was about learning. That's our survival, is to learn, to just keep learning. But these were the love in this house. And I've spoken to my brother and to other family members who have been part of this and witnessed it, because I feel like that was the backbone of what gave me the strength I'm 71, through my 71 years in this 3-dimensional world. And I was very vividly aware at a very young age of being this soul that inhabited this human form, and had paranormal experiences from day one, whether it was out of body when I was a kid. And, and that is the world that has intrigued me and fascinated me my whole life. So, but the love and then I had an experience when my father he had cancer, and both he and my mom died of the exact same cancer, which they felt in those days was an environmental toxin that took many years of growing, and it happened fast. And but I had this experience with my father. I had come into the hospital room, and he was standing at a sink, asleep. He was just fell asleep while standing, and I had come into the room, and he he didn't hear me. So I witnessed him first standing there asleep, and I didn't say anything. But then his eyes opened, and when he was looking in a mirror, so he saw my reflection in the mirror. And at that moment, when he saw me, because we were so close, we knew that we were soulmates in another, we were together in another life. We knew that. When he saw my face, excuse me, I gotta figure out how to turn that off. At any rate, when he saw my face, a grunt came out of his body. It was an animal sound, the likes of which I'd never heard from a human being. It was a very different sound, but it was a sound of love. At the deepest level, it was beyond thought. It was beyond anything. It was just this, it came out of him to me. It was the greatest gift I have ever received in my entire life from any human being. To feel loved so deeply, it was beyond. It was the greatest gift that I could have been given. So for me, that's where I come from. And I am really grateful for that upbringing. Yeah.
Wow.
And I wish that people could feel that, it's one thing, yes, it's the end of the day, our journey is about self-love. But when you experience, when you see, when you witness love between two other human beings, and the power of that, and how that then affected other people and impacted their lives, when you see what they did out in the world, and then you see it generationally, because my grandparents were amazing. I mean, I came from amazing, very deeply spiritual, powerful people. And the love is the backbone of what I know. My brother and I, we were able to traverse this world. Doesn't mean all kinds of things didn't happen, believe me. And I created them from my own learning, obviously, to be where I am now. And to be committed to now saying, okay, this is who I am. That's it. I live from the inside out, and thank God for the toolbox of things that I've gathered through the years. And in fact, your book, I will tell you this, because we are in this 3D form. We are perfect as we are, but the 3D world pulls us out of that. I call it my center. And that's it. That's the process. So then how do I reconnect? Well, I will tell you, the morning I was reading I had gotten up. Somehow I was disconnected. But the moment I picked up your book, it was like just the perfect tool at that moment to bring me right back to where I needed to be, and then flow through my rest of the day into an interview where I needed to be, connected to me. So thank you for that.
Oh, beautiful. I'm so glad. I think that what you're describing, this love, is actually the divine blueprint. Like, this is where we're quote unquote supposed to be. I think that this is what everything is created from, but that this world has really veered off from that love. And that love, from my perspective, that love, that's the compass that brings us back home to ourselves, to where the healing is, to where the joy is, to where life itself is. And it's like, when
Absolutely.
we veer off that path, we start to struggle, we start to suffer.
I totally agree. I totally agree. So and then of course the self-love piece is, I feel that has made it easier, having come from so much love. That was something that I could witness. And then, because obviously these people were very much in self-love,
Mm.
all of them, and they came together. So you have two human beings who are in that place, and then they join forces, and it was powerful. It was powerful. So, I've chased that. I've wanted that my whole life, to find that mate in my life who is in self love, and to join forces with that person. I have not found that. So that's okay. Um, I believe I will. Um, Having been brought back to where, and the lessons that I needed to learn to be able to be where I am now. So I feel like my life is really just starting, to be honest. It's just from a whole new place. And I'm, yeah, very excited about, I'm just here doing, and really staying committed to that light and that love. That's all. And I don't have to do anything else, nothing else. That's it. Stay there, and everything else, whatever and I know why I'm here. So I can just do and it's really not anything. All it really is just loving. That's all it is. It's really simple, stupid. But
Yes, exactly. I absolutely agree. What a beautiful gift that you were given to have that solid foundation of love that you grew up in. Because, having that solid foundation of love helps us to love ourselves, to helps us to know what that love is. And so many of us did not have that experience growing up, where so many children today, are in broken homes, and people are,
oh, brutal.
parents who are struggling, who, you know parents who just don't really love each other. They're together for convenience, or because they've just kind of found themselves in the circumstance or whatever, and there's really not that deep level of love, and it makes it very, very confusing for children when their parents are not in that state of deep love. I can attest to that myself.
Right. One thing that I will say is that regardless of having had that, what I know that both my brother and I also, because it doesn't matter whether it's that or the reverse, because no matter what, you still have to do the same work. And so, from that standpoint, what I found was, because these were two tremendously powerful people. And so, our struggle as a brother and sister we saw that. And then, because we saw what they accomplished in their lives, and what I mean, everything was so incredible to live up to that. So my mother, I'm a female, um, living up to, my mother was the kindest. She was the most exquisitely beautiful woman, powerful in her own being, not outwardly powerful, quiet, just beautiful strength. I grew up as the daughter of that, never feeling like I could live up to that. And so I felt less than. And when you feel less than, you obviously don't love yourself. So no matter how much somebody else loves you, it doesn't matter. So then my own journey was to deal with that. So was my brother's, as a son of a very powerful and accomplished, incredibly deeply spiritual man who was truly connected to his soul, and had no fear of, he just was the most powerful human being I have ever met. And to see that, I can't even imagine how difficult that was for my brother. Sorry about that. Oh my gosh. I thought I turned this off. I don't know why this is doing this. At any rate, for him to have to his struggle, I saw it, I witnessed his struggle to get to where, and it brought him into all kinds of difficulties, as it did me. And so both of us were on our journey back to being feeling that we were enough, that we were good. And then for me, I don't know where he is right now in his life, but I know where I am. So, but that was so, when you look at that, does it really at the end of the day matter whether you came from that or you didn't? No. No, all that matters is your awareness, and then knowing what you have to do if you're so inclined to want to do the work, to say, okay, I know who I am, and then to take the actions. Because it's one thing, as you said in your book, and I think that if I were to add something to that, which you mentioned, but you didn't stress a lot, but my own experience of the process is that it's one thing to, there always has to be action. There has to be some action taken when there is an awareness. When you are doing your work, there's this piece where at some point, so let's just talk about food for a second. There has to be an awareness. If you have this thought that, and if, let's say, someone is struggling with their body, and they're either sick because they're overweight, or whatever it is that manifests, and all of the things that you talked about in your book, but at some point there must be, I call it right action, but any action, any physical action. You don't even have to know if you're doing the right thing. It's an action that must take place that is crucial, and that is the component that then will help with the self-love piece. Because if you, like you said, if I just go like this and, oh, I love you, no, that's not self-love. Self-love is taking a really concerted effort and awareness and the action to really do what's necessary. So if in that moment that is, and it's about choice, do we choose? It's all about choice. Do you choose life? Do you choose taking a path that might be more difficult, because I might want that thing there that I know, because I have enough information to put together, that enough that says probably that's not the best choice you can make, and on a consistent basis. So to me, it's about also, if you are truly in a place of love, it's easy then to make you want to do those things that are going to really make you feel good, and and then the result is you witness. Like for me, I lived for a year and a half with someone who is, their program was saying, I'm getting old, I'm this, and this is, and so I was coming from a different place. So I rebutted within myself and verbally, well, that's not my story. I'm getting younger. I'm getting younger. And in fact, I see the difference. Yeah, I am. My body transformed. It's amazing. But I really felt it in my heart. And then I followed it with actions of, this is my lifestyle. This is how I live. I make these choices, and they support that. So
Exactly. Wow. I think that, I love so much of what you've been talking about, and talking about, feeling less than, you know how you got to feeling less than is like the opposite of how I got to feeling less than, but we both got to the same point. Right. And I think we each come in with these souls lessons that we want to explore, that we want to, that these lessons will manifest for us no matter how we get there. No matter what the external circumstances are, we're going to experience the things that we need to experience in this lifetime. So
exactly.
how did that play out for you as a child?
Well, I was a people pleaser. I was in A-type, but I was in A-type from passion because my father, one of the things that and I think it was easier for him with me because I was a female and I was growing up in the early 50s. Yeah, I was born in 1953. It was a very different world for men and women. And so so being a female, um, the, it, because I didn't have to, in those days, the way in the 50s, early 50s, you grow up, you go to college, you get married, you have children, and you live happily ever after. And I didn't have to work. Money wasn't a thing. So money was a whole different thing that I had to learn about. I'm still learning about that.
Right.
Um, so, right. So, there's always something to learn. So you never stop, no matter what. But because of that, what he did instill in me that I know he didn't instill in my brother, the message, his words were, if you follow your passion, the money will come.
Beautiful.
So for me, all I had to do was follow the things that I was interested in. And because I love to learn, I became proficient at a whole bunch of things. I was a pianist. I studied piano. I got my degree in music. I was a classical pianist and I sang and played guitar. I've done a lot of things and I'm an artist. And it was always a toss up between art and music. And then I was also an athlete. So I was into sports and into dance. I was a ballet dancer and uh, yeah, so I was, and again, I came from a house where, we were not poor. So I was exposed to my father sang opera and lieder. And he was at one time working his way up to the top of that, uh, in that field. They were prepping him to tour Europe. So
Wow.
he was extremely, and my mother sang musical comedy and they were incredible performers, phenomenal. Before my dad died, because I had wished he had lived longer because I wanted to know about all his paranormal experiences. But the last one that he shared with me, what would happen to him when he would do a concert. And he sang with the Boston Philharmonic. He gave a solo concert at Jordan Hall, which is the best hall in Boston other than Symphony Hall. It's for solo performances more. At any rate, and that was before they were prepping him to go to Europe. And what he told me was that when he would be on stage, he would literally fold into himself and in his head, he would be thanking the composer for this exquisite music that he had the privilege to share. And then he would get out of the way. And because of course, in order to get to that point, you have to practice and put your time in order to be so accomplished technically. But he would get, and his soul, he went into his heart. He had the technical ability to then let it flow through him. But he would be gone. He said to me, I traveled the universe. I would be gone out of my body. He said, my body was on stage performing, but I would be gone. So that was my dad. And of course, I totally related because everything that I do is basically when I do my art or whatever it is, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter what it is. It's like, okay, what do you want me to do? You can use my body. I'll do anything you want. Thank you for all the love in my life. And I get out of the way. And then whatever it is that I'm creating flows through. And, I know that my body did it, but it's just opening up the I call it a tube. Open up the tube so that flows through. And I had a very extraordinary experience working with a client of mine. I was in the hair business for 18 years and she was dying. I was taking care of her. And at this particular time, she had cancer, and I took her to her radiation treatments. And this is before I knew anything about energy work at all. I knew nothing. And what happened was, she had a macrobiotic chef who was making food for her, but she could barely eat. The radiation, she lost her eyesight. She was going down very fast. And so this particular day, what would happen, he would make me tea, a special tea, because the radiation crusted her eyes totally shut. So he made this tea, and I would then take and moisten her eyes with the tea, and remove the crusting, so that that was going. And then I would just, now I never studied massage. And but what I did was, I this particular day was massaging her feet. And all of a sudden, I intuitively knew right at that moment she was leaving her body, she was dying. And so, and this is not thought, I intuitively knew. And so I just kept loving her and massaging her. And I was just pouring all my love, my heart and soul. I loved this woman beyond. And all of a sudden, a bolt of white light shot through my body into her body and brought her back. And of course, I freaked out because I didn't know what happened. I was like, whoa, what just happened here? And that led me on a path for the rest of my life to understand what happened. And she knew what happened. She woke up and she said, I want to die in Mexico, because she lived in Mexico. She came up to Boston 4 times a year. And I would see her 4 times a year because I did her hair. And so she woke up and she told me that. And then I went into the so I'm now totally flustered because I don't know what happened. And I went to the macrobiotic chef and I said, I told him what had happened. And so of course he was way beyond me where I was at that time with energy and whatever. And he said, he just calmed me down. He said, it's okay. But it led me on a path to understand what happened here. And it led me on the rest of my life path. So,
Wow.
and
How
so I called her sister, and they, thank God, they had enough money the next day, she was air vacked, but in a medical plane back to Mexico, and she died in Mexico.
wow. What a beautiful gift for both of you.
Oh my gosh, it was, yeah. But that's the power of love. That's the power of love, and
Absolutely.
getting, yeah, it's the power of love.
Yes. Everything from my current level of understanding, what I see, everything is made of love. Everything that comes from source, God, source, universe, is made of this love. And
That's it.
when we tune into that love, there's nothing stopping us. We're in this incredible co-creative space to allow universal intelligence to flow through us and direct us, and life becomes effortless and
Right.
magical and beautiful. Healing happens. This is, and it's when we're not tuned into this love, when we've shut off the faucet and not allowed this love to come through, this is where all the suffering comes from.
All of it.
Yep.
All of it. All of it. John Lennon had it right. All there is love. There's nothing else.
Exactly.
So, and the gifts that we've been given, and I think that's a big part of it is, so at least part of what's in my toolbox, where I go to if I get disconnected from that, is gratitude. I know that it sounds trite because everybody talks about it, but if you experience it, it's not trite. It is the hardest thing to grab onto when you are disconnected to. So it's not easy when you're in that place. but at least I know enough, at least for me, to now and practice again, practice, habits, habits, the practice of, so I know now when I go in there, so I look around, all I do is look around, and all I have to do is notice one thing that's beautiful, and that, and say, oh my gosh, thank you for that beautiful leaf, thank you for this beautiful, what, anything that I can grab on, but, and that literally pulls me right back.
Right? Beauty is power.
Beautiful. So when people say, what are you about? For I and what do I do? And what, I'm a beautician. Technically, I am a beautician. I was in the hair business for 18 years, more than that, still am. But and this is my dream, to do a TED talk on beauty, because I have this equation that beauty equals joy, and that there is an underlying geometrical structure and process that happens when you witness beauty, and how vital it is, our food. It is our soul food,
Yeah.
truly our soul food, to witness and be surrounded by beauty. And that I believe there's an underlying structure, geometric structure to beauty, that our biology responds to. And when we can witness beauty and what it does to us, that puts us in a state of awe. When we are in a state of awe, that is our giving back to the energy field, to God, to whatever you want to call it, our thanks for this, with being able to be in this process. And it's part of the toroidal field of in and out. So now we are in awe. That awe, if you are truly in awe, it moves your soul to want to go outward. So I call that outward movement creation, that we must create from that place of awe. And when we are in that place and we create, that is what brings us joy. Because in the creating is love. When you're creating from that place of awe, it is love that's being created. And that is where, for me, that is where that is what joy truly is. So beauty equals joy. And we are now living in a world that I witness, that I see that people are not being in enough beauty. There is so much ugliness that I see, and that we are losing. And so then the equation is, you're in ugliness, you are not in a place of love and joy. So we need that beauty. And that is what I do. I create, and I create beauty, and I can do it in the 3D world. And that is what I do.
I think I really think that beauty is a state of being.
It
That,
is totally.
right? But we have been taught that beauty is on the cover of a magazine, or beauty is, what we see on the big screen. And that, if our face is not on the cover of the magazine, then we're not beautiful. We are
Beauty, yeah.
filled with beauty. We are created from beauty, is what
And love.
I see.
I totally agree. Beauty, if you connect into the love, you feel beautiful. It
Yes.
doesn't matter. Have you ever, okay, the perfect example, and I actually had this happen the other day in the crystal store where I work. So I had a man come in, and, we look the way we do. And he pretty much paid no attention. I greeted him and fine, he was doing his thing. But then we started to talk. We had a little conversation, and the conversation got to be a really wonderful conversation, because crystals are my tools. I work in this crystal store, and they're just tools through which I can then communicate with people. So we were talking, but then he stepped back because he was witnessing me. I mean, he was obviously, I think, a lot younger. I don't know his age. I have no idea, couldn't care less. But what happened was he stepped back and then he looked at me and he looked in my eyes. And he just was like, oh my goodness, oh my God, who are you? He saw inside. He totally had bypassed the physical, because the reality was I'm this gray-haired little woman, I have a great little body, but he would, I am to him what he saw on the first glance. But then when we started talking, and then he looked at me and then he witnessed who I was. And he just was like, oh my God, it just, so beauty is not this physical thing. It is the soul shining through the physical form. It's the same kind of thing when you see elderly people who have that sparkle in their eye. What is that? That's their soul shining through the physical form. That's
Yes,
all it is.
absolutely.
It's the beauty and love. They're the same.
Yes. And, so many of us were trained to only see the physical beauty. And we were told in so many ways that if we didn't have that body, if we didn't have the big boobs or, whatever it was, that we weren't beautiful. So we were, sent that message. So much of humanity is sent the message of you're not beautiful, you're not enough, you're not okay. And here, look over at all of this craziness that's going on. Focus your attention on all the craziness. Focus on the battling, focus on the and if we're not focused on our own beauty, if we're not focused inside, where that beauty is constantly, there's a constant flow of that through the universe. As I was meditating last night, I was watching this flow of joy that flows through the universe. It is always flowing like a river through the universe. But if we don't notice it, if we don't tap into that, then we don't see it. But when we tune in and we allow ourselves to get swept up in that joy, in that beauty, that's what sweeps away all of the strife and the struggle and the I'm not okay. It's what starts to open our hearts and allow who and what we are to really flow through and be seen through our eyes.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's very powerful. And it's just, so again, everything is about going inward and living from the inside out. It truly, that's the only place you can read. I don't, you can read as many books as you want. Yes, they're great because they can help, they're tools. But at the end of the day, it's how much work do you want to put down the tool? Do you want to put down the books? Because those are not necessarily your tools. Do you want to put all of that away that's in the physical outside there and just be quiet and be okay and just go and do your journey inward? And then if you need tools, there are amazing tools out there. I work with crystals in a deep way, and I have had profound, incredible experiences with these living beings, because they are living beings, um, beyond anything in my wildest imagination.
How did you start working with crystals?
My parents, I mean, imagine this. I'm in elementary school, and my parents they slept very little. They were up till 2 in the morning, 3 in the morning. They were really artists at heart. And so they collected art. So they'd be hanging pictures in the middle of the night, whatever. They came in my room one night at about 2 in the morning, and they woke me up with two shopping bags filled. One was filled with cow bones, old cow bones, fossilized cow bones, which I was not interested very much in. But the other shopping bag I was. They were large specimen crystals. There was pyrite, amethyst, quartz. I mean, it was amazing. Shopping bag filled with. I was the beauty. Took my breath away. I'm only maybe. I don't think I was more than 10 years old, if that.
Wow.
Maybe 8, whatever. And that set me on a path because I ended up. I wanted to be a geologist, and they sent me to an Audubon summer camp for geology that summer. So imagine this is me in my bedroom. I started collecting my rocks, and I would sit in my bedroom with hydrochloric acid testing my rocks as a kid.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. So they have woven themselves in and out of my life. I did not become a geologist, but they became a very powerful piece of my life. And I had an experience when I was in my 20s. I was in New York and I was in a workshop. And I was learning how to work with a quartz crystal to scan the aura,
Mm.
to just learn how to scan the aura. So now, and I was working the workshop. But this particular session, I was a participant, and there were 500 people in this workshop, and we were buddied up with people. We had a partner that we're working with, and I was working. Well, that particular day, I wasn't into it at all. I couldn't have cared less. So now I have this woman in front of me that I'm working with. And if I'm looking at you and I got the crystal in my right hand and I start on her left side, and my head was turned this way. I wasn't paying attention. I couldn't have cared less. So I was my body, like you said, you can love yourself or you can love yourself. I couldn't have cared less. My body went through the motion. And I'm looking totally away from her, not paying attention. Well, when I got to the right side of her body, the crystal yanked my hand into her body, into this hole that I didn't know what it was at the moment, but it literally, the crystal yanked my hand. This was not me moving and I screamed. I'm in a room with 500 people and I scream and I'm like, oh, what's going on? And it woke me up. And it's like, okay, I think I better pay attention. There's more here than I'm aware of. And that led me on my path, with crystals, because then I understood that there's more than meets the eye. And of course, then I did get the information later that, there was a hole in her auric field. And it literally, the crystal yanked my hand right into that hole where there was something going on physically with her. So that's what happened. But that set me on a path to say, what happened? This more than meets the eye. Mm-hmm. And so then I started to work more with crystals, and then I left it, did other things, and then they kept coming back, and I kept having more. I don't know how to really the word to use, but I will just say the paranormal world, things that kept happening with crystals too, and still do. It's every day I experience just amazing things with them, and I use them for my own healing. And and then of course I studied the work of Marcel Vogel, who Marcel Vogel worked for IBM. He was the one that grew and faceted crystals for IBM computers, because quartz rules the planet. Quartz runs the planet. And he talked about them. And Tesla talked about them as living beings, and the way, and so what I teach people in my crystal store, how to, I call it my crystal 101. But you can read every book in the planet. Everybody has something else to say until you start to really live and work with them, and just be open. You don't have to do anything. You just be open and be sensitive. They communicate with me. always say to people, if there was a scale of 1 to 10, 1 being the most subtle, 10 being the most powerful, you take those two extremes and put them together. And that's how crystals communicate with me. So that it's so subtle, their way that they communicate. It could go right over your head, but it doesn't. It knocks you on the head.
Mm.
And so then you are left like, what, and it's the same thing as when you talked in your book about working with angels, the same kind of thing. It's just being soft, being quiet and softly aware to listen to a different kind of communication and being aware. So yeah, they're my dearest friends.
I love that.
And I actually just recently had an experience with trying to sleep, and I was working with trying to fall asleep with an amethyst and a fluorite together here. And actually, what happened was I went into state, and I was working. I was just pulling the energy up from the root chakra all the way through up into the crown. But then what happened was, because they say that crystals are an antenna, they store and transmit information and they amplify, but it also, because of our pineal gland, which is an antenna, what happened, and this is what I saw, and this just happened the other night. I'd never had this happen before, but that column of light, that column inside, so the energy was coming up through my body into that, but the crystals were there. And then what happened was I saw I saw the intent, the radio. I saw a circle, circle around a circle, the rate, and it was pulsing, and it was the antenna. And then the last circle was waves, and so I'm like, oh my gosh! So I forced myself back out of that to draw it, because I knew I would forget it in the morning. So I got up, I drew what I saw. Then I went back and did it again. And then this time it was even more powerful, because in the center, so now the wavy line wasn't there on the outside, it was just this radio signal pulsing, these circles around each other. And in the center of the middle circle was a cross, but it wasn't a Christian cross. It was the Native American cross, that is equal, each piece is equal. And that symbol is the 4 directions. So what was happening is the antenna, the crystals were amplified, and the antenna through the pineal gland was connecting to the energy field, and it was going out in all directions. And that was the image I saw, and it was like, whoa, okay, great. I love it. Thank you. And then I went to sleep.
Wow, that's amazing.
Yeah. So crystals are just a beautiful source of information for us to learn from.
Absolutely.
And they're beautiful, so it's easy.
Exactly. I love it. They are amplifiers of beauty for sure. They hold that frequency.
Oh, and so much information. Yeah, it's amazing.
And that, I think that's really why they're used for healing the body, because they help the body to come back into a harmonious frequency.
Absolutely. So yes, and my understanding, because I work with them with sound, I work with them, just on myself. I don't work with other people. I work with just my own body. But I had a knee that I completely healed with a crystal and the singing bowl, because the singing bulb was the frequency, the crystal was the amplifier. And what it also does is it opens up the pathway. It creates more nitric oxide, which opens up the pathway for the frequency to enter into the body to heal. Plus your intention, because I work with crystals in intention. And in fact, I had tracked down, when I studied Marcel Vogel's work, and I watched, so he had a download to facet quartz not only for the computers, but for healing. And and the facets were according to some of the angles on the Great Pyramid, whatever. And he was teaching practitioners, medical practitioners, how to work with these. They're called Vogel wands, and they become like lasers. Well, there are a lot of fake ones out there, but it doesn't matter. It's still quartz. So, but I tracked down. There were probably only 3 men that faceted for him, and I tracked down several years ago a man in California who was one of his people that faceted for him, and he took my call, and I was on the phone with him for about an hour and a half, and he faceted a Vogel wand for me. It took almost a year for me to get it, but I gifted myself that for my birthday. And I don't use it a lot because it's very powerful. It's, one of my lessons in learning how to manifest in this world is that don't take it lightly. Don't take that lightly, what you want, because if you understand how it works, and when you don't understand how it works, you'll manifest things that you don't want. And so I have to be very mindful of when I use this instrument, because it becomes like a laser out into the energy field. So, yeah.
Wow. That's amazing. So do you think your childhood growing up laid that foundation for you to be where you are today?
No question.
Beautiful.
Yeah, for sure. So that's my story.
I love your story. And I love that you're using your story to help others to connect into their beauty in the crystal store. So tell people where do they find you? You're in Naples, Florida currently.
I am. I'm in Naples, Florida, and people can reach me through either my website, because I'm also an artist and designer. So I have a website, which is robinjoy.com, ROBINJOY.com. And my contact information is there, and they can reach me through email, which is robinjrobin@icloud.com.
Oh, beautiful. Robin Joy, this has been such a joy to have you on the show today. We really appreciate everybody who comes on the show and shares their story, because the more we share our stories, the more we empower each other to embrace our story, no matter what the story is.
Absolutely. Yeah. Sharing is a big thing. So
Yes, indeed.
we're all here to help each other. So
That's right.
yeah.
So if you are in Naples, Florida, go seek out Robin Joy at the Crystal Store and
Silver Eagle.
say it again.
It's called Silver Eagle.
Silver Eagle in Naples, Florida. Check it out. Go find Robin Joy and find some beauty to add to your life with some beautiful crystals and some beautiful energy from Robin Joy. So, everyone, thank you so much for joining us today for another episode of Soul Stories, because every soul has a story, and you get to tell your story any way you want. You're a grand being of light, a creator. Create for yourselves a great story because you can. Until next time, create wisely. Love you all.
Thank
Thank
you,
you
Maura,
so
for
much,
having
Robin
me.
Joy.
Thank you,
Bye,
Lisa.
everyone.
Thank you.
Thanks for listening to this episode of Connecting You to You Radio. If you've enjoyed this podcast, please subscribe and share it with your friends. Are you ready to discover more about how simple healing your body can actually be when you do it from the higher wisdom of your soul? To learn more about what I do and how you can work with me, visit connectingyoutoyou.com and get on my mailing list to be the first to know about my latest offerings. If you'd like to interact with me on Facebook, please join my group, Soul Sourced Healing. Check the show notes below for these links and more. I hope to see you again next time on Connecting You to You Radio.